Yeah, so on that subject, and if we look at resilience across the workforce, so capability and capacity, you've got your permanent employees, that's an ongoing journey of building the best possible team, and reskilling and upskilling and building the capability of that side of the workforce. Then you've got your contracting suppliers and your ability as a brand to attract contractors to come and work for you. But then you've got your supply base. So then you've got your services suppliers that can deliver stuff on an outcomes or output basis. So within that, there needs to be a joined up approach to align that use of capacity, which we'll come on to in a minute. But I think that's something that in a lot of organizations, they don't really have enough of an appreciation for that as part of this. It's not in the same conversation. It doesn't feel like it's the same conversation a lot of the time, but there's huge potential resilience in this services procurement supply chain alongside the T&M based or permanent employee based workforce channels. There's also potentially a lot of available diversity, and it's not easy to get all those things lined up, but I think there are ways that organizations can look to maximize the different options that they've got. But services suppliers definitely need to be a part of that kind of extendable capacity, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. And what is the, we're always trying to answer what is the optimal workforce mix for a certain area. That's what we need to crack. And contact center would be a really good example to use for this. And so, I'm sure lots of contact centers are similar, but we have a permanent contact center cohort of colleagues. Then we flex with temporary workers as required, but then we outsource a huge amount of our other element of contact center offshore. And that's the way that our kind of workforce is structured. And what that allows us to do is to be able to monitor those changes over time. Is there anything from an attrition perspective that we need to be aware of? Are we launching a new range of sandwiches? So you wouldn't believe the excitement when we launch our Boxing Day sandwich range, that we need to make sure.
What was in it? Come on, was it like Christmas leftovers type approach?
Yeah, it was literally absolutely sandwich heaven. Pigs in blankets, stuffing, applesauce, you name it. But actually, those things, when we're launching anything different with our member proposition, we need to flex the workforce mix. We recently, as a result of COVID, launched our 24-hour helpline. So obviously families in need were able to contact us at any given time about anything. Well, our permanent contracts weren't necessarily able to flex quickly enough to be able to respond to that 24/7 requirement, but our service contracts were able to flex. So I think it's about having those joined up regular conversations. And gosh, we don't always get it right, but actually procurement and people talking regularly about the business strategy, the current workforce mix that is there, the cost of that current workforce mix, the output of that current workforce mix, and able to talk about whether we could adjust it or not is really important. And we're doing that relatively successfully in some of our contact center areas. But one of the things that you asked me is where do you start with some of this? And actually, start with an area that you think you can make the biggest impact in, or has the biggest problem, has the biggest reliance on contingent labor or temps, or maybe has a big attrition challenge. So if you can focus on one area first and almost prove a case for thinking in a slightly different way, a much more strategic way, and then progress from there, because this kind of thing is huge. You need an awful lot of people having an awful lot of different conversations. So it's important not to boil the ocean, and progress versus perfection is our mantra within our team, because you've got to start somewhere, but definitely try and start small and influence leaders to really see this as something that's valuable, and have sourcing and resourcing discussions rather than it's a recruitment meeting, it's a procurement meeting, it's an HR meeting. Those things need to come together collectively, so you're looking at the whole picture.
And do you think starting with a kind of a start small approach and get some case examples, do you think that helps with buy-in internally?
So it helps. In my experience, yes. Again, it depends on your organization, but I think you kind of have to prove a case definitely. You've got to prove that something works, and conceptually, this is quite a hard thing to get your head around. So you need to be able to outline why you think it's a really strong idea and show some benefit from doing that. So I would say, create a case for change for a small area that is either keen to test something new, or has a big problem, and then go from there. Definitely creating a case for change is needed in every line of the work that we do, isn't it? But certainly in this instance, I think it's important.
Yeah, and what about strategic buy-in from the C-suite in terms of, is it a question of them helping to drive that direction from its inception, having the right sponsors in the C-suite, or is it something where the business is doing clever things and then taking it to the board level and saying, we have these options, we should be pursuing this route?
Yeah, and sometimes it depends on the scale of what you're trying to achieve. So if it was a particular huge piece of work, then it would be a board level discussion about the options that we have. Actually, if it's something around how we would rearrange our contact center, you might not necessarily need to take it to board. These are, we've got senior leaders in our organization that have accountability to make appropriate choices. They manage their own budget, they manage their establishment, and therefore they have the ability to flex that as they see fit. But the important thing also to mention is that we've made a shift in recognizing the importance of procurement and people working more closely together. And with that in mind, our chief people officer is actually accountable for procurement. So we are thinking about people and services, capability and capacity and services, all in the same way. We all report to the same person, which is much more helpful. So our chief procurement officer hears the challenges that we're facing from a colleague perspective and the opportunities we have to do things differently. So that in itself has been a significant shift in recognizing the importance of bringing those things together.